best of 3, and Gamtee, they need to show us something different because the Kassadin, the Hecarim, didn't work out.
Yeah, didn't quite make it through, but we are into Champion Select. Let's see if anything changes here as Gamtee. They're going to take away the Nunu and the Vladimir yet again, but LeBlanc Kalista now going to go through, and Legend Dragon, they do not want to let LeBlanc go into the hands of Xiaohu, but they really put value on that one, so they don't want to risk it.
Yeah, first pick and then first ban coming through from Legend Dragon. On patch 5.6 of all patches, Atlas, they ban away the LeBlanc. LeBlanc's been kind of a point of failure for a lot of teams, just not being able to deal with those tanky members in the late game. But the excellent ganking pressure. I think giving away LeBlanc and Rek'Sai is the big hole. If you get an excellent ganker from level 2 and the high damage, you get punished. The adaptation ban, the Sivir comes through, but that leaves Lulu up for first pick.
Yeah, Gamtee going to lock that one away as quickly as possible here, and I find it interesting that they put that much emphasis on picking away the Lulu when the Rek'Sai is available there. Huey has had fantastic performances on that champion. Of course, Pentakill in his first game on Rek'Sai, not too much of a bad example there, as LD thinking about a Janna here for the bottom lane, and we'll see what a Voidless is going to take it. Wouldn't surprise me if it was the Rek'Sai. Of course, he was fantastic on that champion early on, but might have been to do with the fact that he could gank a lane that is as powerful as LeBlanc early.
I think there's just a lot of synergy between LeBlanc and Rek'Sai, as we mentioned, but leaving Rek'Sai open, not taking it away, that's a big surprise to me. I feel like you have to take that champion where available. Let Me played a very good top Lulu in recent weeks, so I feel like that's going to be the mage of choice for the top lane. Not so much the Kassadin top anymore, but the Lulu top might have to be what Let Me's left with. Seems more comfortable on these top lane mages than he is on the tanks. Gamtee have done this a lot. They've gone for the Protect the Jinx comp, and at least in these first 3 picks, that's all we can assume.
Yeah, Kabe thinking about a Vayne. Not sure whether that one is going to go through, but of course, definitely is going to be the case here for Gamtee, and sort of trying to take it to Legend Dragon at their own game.
Interesting what Legend Dragon do now that they know that they're effectively against a Protect the Jinx comp. They're so experienced themselves with Protect the Kog'Maw that they might go for the real mid-game power. The Rek'Sai picked, I expect that. Don't think we're going to see the Imp-style Misfortune coming through.
Yeah, Misfortune may not be the option here. Kabe is going to move over to something else. Still aiming for more of a late-game carry here if Twitch or Kog'Maw are going to be locked in, and Kabe locks in his signature Kog'Maw there. Doesn't have any Juggermaw ability coming through, but of course the Protect the Kog'Maw comp still working out very well for a lot of our LPL teams. We'll see how it goes this game as Gamtee now up to them to round out their lineup, and Huey thinking about one of his old staples in the Jarvan.
I mean, the big thing that comes different when you don't have the Lulu and the Morgana available to you in the Protect the Kog'Maw comp is that the Kog'Maw is going to be positioned much more defensively at the back of the fight, trying to hit the front line rather than at the front of the fight hitting whoever he damn well pleases. So that's the big difference with the lack of Juggernaut coming through. Janna and Kog'Maw, a lot of synergy between those two. The disengage with that big late game explosion of damage coming through from Kog'Maw. Once again, though, we see the Trundle being picked up by Let Me.
Yeah, Let Me going to be taking the Trundle means that Xiaohu's going to pick up the Lulu there in the mid lane. Parsa now knows exactly what's going on. We'll see what is exactly going to happen. May not actually be. Could be Morgana in the mid lane, and Syncdream might play the Lulu. Who knows?
Yeah, that's a good question. They do have the flexibility of either Morgana or Lulu in the mid lane. The only person who's really locked in is the top lane Trundle, but you know, there could be a top lane Jarvan, but let's be realistic. It's going to be a top lane Trundle coming through. Let me going to do his best impersonation of Game 1 and try and make that happen again. It's Trundle versus Maokai. It's the same matchup. Yeah,
Trundle versus Maokai to come through, but it is going to be Cassiopeia against the Lulu here in the mid lane. We'll see how that one goes here, as Xiaohu actually has Trundle at the moment, but we'll see what exactly does happen as
he's played mid lane Aurelia.
He has. Let Me hasn't played as much top lane Jinx. But we'll see how that goes. And it is, of course, actually, there were some interesting swaps. In the end, it didn't actually go through, but we are going to remake the lobby, ladies and gentlemen, as Gamtee probably should have just tried to swap a little bit quicker than they otherwise could. But let's go through the lineups here as Let Me on the Trundle yet again into the Maokai once more. And Last time that matchup didn't work out so well early, but definitely did late.
And we learned that in the late game, Trundle's going to shrug off the Maokai and just take objectives under his nose. No damage potential to try and push him out of lane, so that will be a big late game consideration. I do love the fact that Cassiopeia is the choice against Lulu. Not ideal in the laning matchup, but as we load into this game, I'll start talking about the fact how Cassiopeia, with these hyper carries like Kog'Maw, is really becoming a valued pick in the competitive scene.
Yeah, because it does give you another threat that you're forced to deal with here, as well as Tail up against Kabe. The battle of the late game hyper carries here as Syncdream and Southwind trying to augment that as best they can with their shields aplenty. Of course, Syncdream, Morgana not banned away this game, had an MVP performance on it in the first one. We'll see whether that is going to be what swings this series. As we do get back into Champion Select as well, we're going to go through everything as quickly as possible and get us into this game ASAP. Of course, the third game of this best-of-5 series, and LD looking great in the last one. We'll see whether they can carry that momentum, but Gamtee, they have sort of the whole LPL season behind them. There is a lot of comfort here for this team. We'll see whether they can use that here to stay comfortable and really bring it to LD in this next match.
You have to feel with these lineups that both teams are opting into the late game to some degree. It was definitely the early to mid game pressure we saw from LD fall away in game 1, which opened up the Gamtee victory, but was doubled down in game 2 that led to Legend Dragon taking it before all the scaling came through from Gamtee. So I'm interested to see how this Legend Dragon lineup is navigated. Specifically, can Avoidless recreate the excellent mid lane pressure that prompted a 40 CS advantage that was never broken by Xiaohu in the matchup in mid?
And you have to think that the common denominator here could potentially be Avoidless on that Rek'Sai as well. I mean, we've spoken about the fact that she is just so powerful here in the early stages of the game. MLXG able to utilize her very, very strongly as well. And Avoidless seems to be no slouch in that department. Really played that first gank very, very well against Xiaohu in the mid, which just put him behind for the rest of the game. There was no way he could do anything after that point.
I mean, Huey is no slouch in terms of jungle pressure either, though. Is playing the Jarvan, who's largely fallen away on patch 5.6 with a couple of changes that came through, and just the fact that he probably prefers the Warrior, but can happily build the Cinderhulk as well. Do his best Loveland impression, because Loveland was building Juggernaut, or, I mean, Green Enchant, jungle Jarvan. Before it was cool. Love to pick up the tankiness on Jarvan. Not as much early damage, but still has the shred. The CC, though, Cassiopeia often has to overextend for damage in the mid lane if she wants to get those aggressive trades in. So Jarvan, an excellent champion to punish that.
Yeah, and Xiaohu able to do the same thing. Does have that polymorph available, can stop Passabit from doing anything at all in these fights. So we'll see how it goes. But ladies and gentlemen, let's get into Game 3. Let's hop onto the Rift. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, Gamtee taking on Legend Dragon. Game 3 here, 1-1. We are all tied up. A best-of-3 scenario breaking out now. And LPL team Gamtee really not looking that strong in the last series. And we'll see whether LD can carry that through into this one. But very different comps coming down. And Tail had a great performance on Jinx in the first game. Let Me also on that Trundle. Of course, not so much early, but late game was fantastic. And Huey, there's a whole lot of comfort here for him on this Jarvan.
It looks like we're starting up with a very defensive fan. No aggressive invades for wards, as far as we can tell. In the first minute is definitely not a common occurrence in the LPL. But in this third game seems to be the way forward. Gives us a bit of time to talk about Cassiopeia coming into the meta, Atlas. I mean, we've seen this in multiple regions, an increased priority on Cassiopeia, and you might wonder why, because Cassiopeia, excellent at single target damage, always struggled in team fights, as Let Me and Huey actually do clear out a ward, so early gold advantage goes to that duo. But Cassiopeia coming back into the meta, she's always had those strengths and weaknesses. Strong laning phase if she can overextend and just register that poison damage, get multiple Twin Fangs out. High damage potential in fights, but it's always been potential because the Petrifying Gaze, sometimes it goes massive, sometimes it's dodged. It's quite predictable in a lot of ways, has a cast time, so it doesn't always get value going. So you might ask, okay, why go for this high-risk, high-reward champion, the Cassiopeia? What does she provide? Let's go back about a month or so. Juggernaut was in full swing, Snake winning every game off the back of it. The big question was, what do you run in the mid lane with Juggernaut? Because you can happily run the Lulu in top, has a very low item threshold to relevance. It was basically CDR boots into the Morellonomicon, 40% CDR, just to have all those abilities available all the time. So the mid lane, what do you run? We saw people run Zed in the mid lane with Juggernaut as a secondary threat. Didn't really seem to work. I really like Cassiopeia with any protect the hyper carry comp just because it makes her positioning in fights much easier to do. The big thing you can say is that Cassiopeia can fight next to the hyper carry, and suddenly the Petrifying Gaze is a very reliable CC because someone needs to dive onto the Kog'Maw this game. The Kog'Maw needs to be assassinated at the back line of the fight, and if Cassio is just sitting next to him, throwing out the poison, throwing out the W, for example, everyone's getting poisoned, trying to gap close onto the Kog'Maw you have to kill. Suddenly you have a high damage threat that actually has disengaged CC, much like a Morgana or a lower damage mid laner, but can throw in the damage to be a threat as well. So the introduction of Cassiopeia into protect the hypercarry comps, or even the true Juggernaut, I think is an excellent strategic step forward for this comp.
Well, we'll see how Parser can play it out in this lane. Of course, has missed quite a few those Noxious Blasts so far in this laning phase, but it is still definitely early days. You can see lane swap has come through here, instigated by Love. Ooh. Oh my goodness! Parser getting taken down very, very low. Both of these mid laners going to eat some cookies to try and get healthy again, and Xiaohu able to take control of this lane.
Look, if you ever try an auto-attack trade with a Lulu, not with any minions to block the passive, you actually take a surprising amount of damage. In early levels, a Voidless, though.
Yeah, he is coming around here. Flashes into the Unburrow as well. Xiaohu going to flash out of the way. There's a Flag and Drag from Huey. Let Me comes through. Xiaohu able to survive through the Igniters. Parser did flash out of the way as well. Xiaohu keeps his offensive summoner, so I guess that is a victory. Both of our mid laners low either in mana or in health. Is the Zap going to find Love Eat Potato, and Tail going to continue this push?
They're almost definitely massively punished there with Legend Dragon. Trundle has to continue the jungle follow for longer than Maokai just because he doesn't have any ranged wave clear. He only has the Chomp to auto attack under turret. The freeze has been on in the top lane for a very long time. So all Trundle could hope to do was to try and get a bit of jungle follow down and some dragon pushing. You can see multiple members on top of the dragon. Means it's going to be a very early dragon for Gamtee.
Yeah, Gamtee able to lock this one down very early on in this game. Of course, are still behind just a little bit just based on some farm, but locking down that dragon very important.
Really overextended.
With no flash. And there's a Morgana coming up as well as... Oh my goodness, the flash into the Dark Binding actually lands here as Let Me comes through. There's a Pillar of Ice. Parser going to get exhausted. A Voidless is around here, but First Blood goes down to Huey. And that was, like you mentioned, bit of an overextension, but a really nice play from Gamtee. That flash bind was beautiful.
But I think you have to wonder, okay, where is this Trundle? Where are they jungling? What are they probably doing? He would have seen the dragon kill register and still was a little bit slow to react to the multiple members that were going to be around the dragon side. They knew his flash was down. They punished him for it. An excellent early game rotation from Gamtee.
Yep, Xiaohu able to clear out this mid lane as well. They'll get that to the turret as Cassiopeia makes her way back, and Xiaohu gets a free back here at this stage. Going to be able to answer the tier purchase from Parser. As he picked that one up. Does have the CS advantage here as well, and we'll see what Xiaohu is going to invest in this lane. Of course, Lulu, a bit more of a lane neutralizer rather than any sort of pressure there in the mid, so see what he goes for. It is going to be the Fiendish Codex as Love Eat Potato. He's going to aggress onto Sync Dream here. Eats a Zap and a Dark Binding for it, though, and stands around that puddle for quite some time. Sync Dream getting a bit of damage down, but Love Eat Potato not at any risk of dying.
I mean, with that first blood gold, or the kill involvement regardless, Xiaohu had the choice of going the offensive option. Of course, Fiendish Codex builds into both Merlinomicon and Athene. Still going to be the cornerstone of the build, will be the 40% CDR. So going for the more offensive option, getting that extra bit of ability power to start to continue to harass Cassiopeia. Of course, we saw the level 2, level 3 trades going pretty damn decent for the Lulu. I think going for the more aggressive choice, probably a smart move.
Well, we'll see how it eventuates here as this game continues. Of course, the gold locked up at this stage. Maokai definitely having the better of this one as Trundle doesn't quite know where to go, as you mentioned before, but he's not dying. So that is a positive, Papa Smithy.
Sync Dream's pathed his way to top, so it's going to have to be 2v1, although Jinx, Janna coming as well. So 2v2 action, the makeshift top lane of Trundle and Maokai, although finally, Kabe does push in this lane. Maybe we're going to see the lane swap down, but Janna's roamed up.
Yep, Tail does have a little bit of a CS advantage as far as how this lane swap has shaked out, but means absolutely nothing. A couple of creeps here as the back is going to come through. Kabe picks himself up that phage. Let Me finds a creep wave, finally.
It's taken him 6 minutes, so I mean, he's really happy to see it. Of course,
there's 3 lanes in this game, Papa Smith. There's a lot of abilities to get to creep waves.
He just couldn't get to any of the Trundle. Going to be later to that late game power spike, but so scary as we saw in game 1 will be Trundle the moment that he can get tankiness and that Ravenous Hydra, when he just becomes immovable and can smash down those structures. From the Phage pickup, you could actually tell that Kabe wasn't going to look to rotate to the 2v2, just because if you're going for 2v2, you usually pick up a Sheen for a bit of trade damage, but the Phage is more to reliably navigate the long laning phase, get that Rage passive up, and get the hell out of the way of Huey if he comes to gank.
Yeah, so able to stay a little bit more safe in these situations, doesn't want to play too aggressively, and like you mentioned, just heads back towards that top lane in this game. Sort of starting a lot more slowly than it did otherwise. Let Me is going to have to find somewhere else to farm now yet again as he's pushed out this top wave, but hasn't really found much more for it. Longsword sitting in his back pocket, wants to get to that Tiamat as quickly as he can, but it's getting difficult here as Living Artillery now available, level 6 to the level 4 of the top laner.
And awkwardly, he used the E. He used the Pillar of Ice to actually push the minion wave, but the way he did it caused all the minions to navigate to the left, and they all aggroed the same creep and made the freeze worse. So
oh dear.
Definitely didn't manage. We saw, I believe, Going almost managed to reset a freeze. Maybe actually it was Flandre, reset a freeze.
It was Flandre, yeah.
With the Pillar of Ice, but awkwardly made it worse for himself.
Yeah, not happening here as a Voidless unable to get the Raptor away from Passer, as Xiaohu going to continue his clearing of this mid lane. Neither of our mid laners have headed back, and neither have changed that CS differential at all as the rocket into the back of the head of Lovey Potato, but he's going to be fine. Petrifying Gaze now onto Huey as he aggresses on top. Takes a little bit of follow-up damage as well, but it's a nice ulti through from Passer to stop any aggression, and Ignite Flash now available yet again here for Cassiopeia, but no ultimate.
You have to think that ult gank, the use of the Cataclysm was to blow the Flash defensively from Passer. Only had to use his ultimate, though. Still has Flash available, so still consistent kill pressure onto Xiaohu, who's built up a small CS advantage in mid.
Yeah, we've got a Janna and a Voidless coming through here as well. A Voidless did have his Flash, could have gone for the aggressive play, but didn't decide to, as Huey is basically dead after taking his red buff. That looked very dangerous, but he is going to be able to back away safely.
Calculated.
Calculated, most definitely. Ooh, Xiaohu actually almost able to pick up a kill there in the mid lane. Flashed forward for it, I believe. Doesn't net himself anything. Glitterland's not going to find Passer as well. 300 health. A little bit difficult for Xiaohu to get through without the help picks there, and doesn't have the flash to close that distance. Southwind and a Voidless making their way back here at the same time, and Xiaohu is just going to take the long way around. He's going to be safe. Preyseeker going to find him. Of course, that Tremor Sense being able to spot him out quite nicely. Tail going to take down this bottom lane outer turret. And Gamtee might be able to get the global gold advantage after picking up the early dragon at the same time. So much better early performance here from Gamtee.
And Maokai does have the big CS advantage, but has lost his turret in this situation. Trundle's picking up farm where he can. Still quite a long way from the Tiamat. Still 700 gold away from finishing that item, I believe. But Maokai needs to find safe places to farm. This should all prompt, though, the swap back to bottom. Gamtee have a very small window right now to kind of take their second dragon, but with their bot lane also shopping, probably not a clear advantage for either team in terms of the dragon.
Yeah, Voidless is hanging around here as well. Void Rush not quite off cooldown just yet, as Let Me with the teleport up in this top side. Has Subjugate, so that's important. Has managed to hit level 6 at least. But with the Catalyst almost completed here for Lovey Potato, LD taking down this dragon very, very quickly. Of course, the poison from Cassiopeia, fantastic in that situation, and evening out the dragons, easy as you like here for LD.
It doesn't have a blue buff available, so used almost her whole mana bar to take down the dragon. That'll probably be worth it, but she's actually been losing mid lane trains to the Lulu as the Cassiopeia, and a low mana bar, probably it's going to be go time for Xiaohu to start trying to actually zone away a Cassiopeia. I can count the amount of times I've said that an enemy champion can zone a Cassiopeia in mid on one hand, but Xiaohu might be able to do it.
Yeah, we'll see whether he does. Of course, has completed the Morellonomicon as Huey looking to take down the red buff, but now Xiaohu's getting down here as well. The double teleports coming through as the Glitterland's going to disengage. Lovey Potato teleported down, but it was cancelled here by Let Me.
The bluff was actually the big victory for Let Me. He gets to farm for free. Maokai finds nothing on the teleport. Might actually force a lane swap. And Kog'Maw and Janna slowly walking to top, missing out on CS. Maokai actually going to get zoned regardless. That was a big advantage just from cancelling a teleport.
Yep. Beautiful play. 2,000 golds now the lead here for Gamtee as well. Sort of out of nowhere here. That being said, LD managed to pick up a free dragon, so they're rotating around this map nicely. This game not too reminiscent of either of our first ones. Still very, very close.
Southwind doing really cute things in the top lane, actually aggroing the minion wave herself was the Janna, trying to restart the freeze in top. Freezing upon freezes with a Pillar of Ice. As the gank in mid, probably going to lead to nothing, although Voidless.
Yeah, actually, there's the Cataclysm as well as a Voidless going down very, very low. Beautiful wild growth there to keep Huey alive, and Zhao Hu picks up a Voidless passer. Now in a lot of trouble, but man, the consistent damage getting the one-for-one trade of the junglers here from that Cassiopeia was mammoth.
Yeah, the Matt Cassiopeia, and remember, that's with a Negatron Cloak and a Tier. No damage items are built at all. Respecting Lulu's early game damage output enough to just go towards the Abyssal Scepter, you'd have to think, with that Negatron Cloak. Don't often see defensive builds coming out from a Cassio, but at least understanding that in those early trades, Pass has been losing out.
Yeah, really beautiful stuff. Zhao Hu now with the Sorcerer's Shoes completed, not going for that cooldown reduction build that we often see.
Gamtee actually steal away the blue buff. Critically, that's Cassiopeia's blue buff, who we've already mentioned has been at low mana values for the majority of this laning phase. We talked about in the previous game how Zhao Hu was kept down by the blue buff monopolization of Legend Dragon, keeping Caston away from that blue. And Gamtee are just doing a reverse this game and trying to keep Pasa down as much as possible on the much more aggressive Cassiopeia.
Yeah, they are trying to steal this one away. Of course, Pink Ward was spotted out here by a Voidless, and they're not going to be able to take this blue, which is going to reset. Huey clearing out some vision with his Raptor Sense. And Sync Dream and Zhao Hu just hanging around here, clearing out some vision at the same time. That's 4 members around the blue buff, and they stole the bottom side one, leaving Let Me there just to clear out these waves. Tiamat completed now as well. This is about the time where this Trundle able to answer a lot of what LD are able to offer and see whether Let Me can have the same impact this game as he did in the last.
Rek'Sai's actually spotted out by a ward, wants to try and punish Trundle, who only has the option to aggressively push now that he does AoE damage with the bite. They're going for the turret dive.
Yeah, they're looking for it here. Subjugated down immediately as there's the Pillar of Ice as well, a Voidless. Oh my goodness, Lovey Potato. Oh, just breaks aggro. Super Mega Death Rocket comes through, but doesn't find the tree. And Pasa actually going to get polymorphed underneath this turret. Zhao Hu dodging away from the turret auto attacks beautifully as well.
I think it's very poor judging of champion strength to try and dive a Trundle with ultimate, with Tiamat as Maokai and Rek'Sai. You just don't have the damage to do it. It's not even Warrior Rek'Sai, it's Cinderhulk Rek'Sai. The damage is just not there, and it seeds more jungle objectives. That's double buff stolen away by Gamtee from Legend Dragon.
Yeah, and that's actually going to be the Petrifying Gaze here as Huey's going to flash out of his own Cataclysm to try and take down Pasa. Zhao Hu does get kill credit for that one. Gamtee, though, moving beautifully around this map. They've taken down the outer ring of turrets. And that was a steal away of a red buff there at the same time. A Voidless just doesn't have access to his jungle.
And 4 neutral buffs to 0 just means you can't even opt into fights or skirmishes because everyone's just relatively more powerful, even if the CS values don't necessarily show it. CS values in the advantage as well complicates things further for Legend Dragon. They just have to see more and more advantages just from what has been poor pathing from a Voidless in particular, being punished for that over-aggressive turret dive without even the item build to really demand it. And yeah, I mean, everything in the jungle going Gamtee's way. They've equal in Dragons, all the buffs on the map, rotate and take the much more important outer turret in mid in exchange for that outer turret in bottom. Things looking good for Gamtee. 3 turrets to 1 up. Almost every metric superior than Legend Dragon.
Yeah, and not, you know, having a necessarily inferior late game team comp as well. Of course, the Protect the Jinx, very, very frightening in the later stages. And with this Trundle as well, as we know, Let Me loves to relentlessly split push. We'll see whether he can make that one happen, because this Trundle, this is about the stage when Let Me manages to find farm in interesting places and become just a massive beast. I believe he was about 100 CS in the lead at the end of the first game on that champion, and that was after, again, pretty difficult early stage.
I think that's an astute observation, Atlas, in that, like in the late game, both of these are strong 5v5 fighting comps. In general, it's hard to pick the difference. It depends on the Cassio positioning. Southwind, though.
Yeah, he might be caught out here as the Monsoon's going to get popped. Huey just flags and drags his way in. Nice zap, going to do a lot of damage. Huey, though, now might find himself uncomfortable as the Chomper's going to come down, and that's going to serve as a nice escape path, as Gamtee now going to disengage from that one. But they get the Monsoon, and that's important.
It is important. They have control over Dragon, whether it's the pink ward or just the multiple members in position. Trundle and Lovey Potato both have their teleports. Double pink ward down.
Lovey Potato actually coming through as well as Zhao Hu going aggressive. They're going to spot the fact that the Maokai is down here. Huey going to get spotted out inside this Dragon Pit. Going to actually aggro that one up as Lovey Potato going to go aggressive. Does use a Twisted Advance. There's the Cataclysm on the Pasa, but Huey, he's going to fall down. The teleport a little bit late here from Let Me as he tries to get into the fight. There's the Petrifying Gaze, but it's only on to Let Me now, and you can see Xiaohu so much consistent damage with these rockets. Does net himself a kill, gets excited. The zap now onto Kabe, the perfect target to be locked down. Now tries to answer back as the double kill for Xiaohu. Tail a little bit too aggressive as Sync Dream only just manages to get down the exhaust, and the triple kill for Xiaohu. The Quadra now as well. Is it the last auto attack? Xiaohu, is he going to land the Glitter Lance to earn himself the Quadra kill?
There's Whimsy.
There's the Whimsy, and he picks it up with the help picks. A Quadra kill for this Lulu.
Yeah, winning the laning phase, and now so much impact in the team fight. Cassiopeia, we talk about the lack of reliability on that Petrifying Gaze. Only one member, as you point out, needed to hold on to it longer. We saw the fact that they were able to hold on to cooldowns to hold down Tail at the end of the fight. Didn't hold on to the Petrifying Gaze, punished in the middle of the fight, and Lulu now has such a massive amount of gold, sitting quite happily on 1,600 gold on top of everything else.
Yeah, that is a beautiful amount of gold for a mid laner as well. We'll see whether he has another needlessly large rod in his inventory. Actually, probably just going to wait and pick up that death cap, and there it is.
That's a lot of early power, and it just empowers the front line as well. Of course, the wild growth scaling on OP means this Trundle going to be more effectively tanky. Only has a null magic mantle for defensive stats, but either the knock-up trio of whatever Huey's doing, of course, with the flag and drag into the Cataclysm, into now the wild growth, can punish the likes of Cassiopeia, do a lot of trade damage. Doesn't matter if you have an extra bound of health.
Yeah, and Let Me just needs to find the target with the most magic resist, subjugate that one up, and then he's going to be tanky to all of Kabe's mid-game Cogmore damage, and of course the whole lot of consistent spells coming through from Pasa, and he'll have a gigantic health pool as well.
I mean, literally, this whole lineup at this present point is magic damage coming through from Legend Dragon. As
Tail is experiencing a lot of magic damage then, as he's just going to fall down. Lovey Potato takes it with the Vengeful Maelstrom, and just out of position.
I mean, negligible physical damage from Rek'Sai, and more true damage than physical, you'd have to think, with that E ability into Cogmore doing mostly magic damage at this point in the game before Blade the Ruin King. Definitely itemizing magic is the right way forward, and Huey, the aggressive choice, as the Flash Soul Shackles.
Yeah, that came through. Sync Dream now taking a lot of damage, but there's the knockups. Xiaohu's here at the same time. Wild Growth onto Southwind as Let Me picks up the kill. That's his first hit for this Trundle, as a Cathian Surprise going to come through, not get anything. Double kill for Let Me is terrifying. 2-0-4 for the Trundle. He's starting to get huge. Voidless trying to answer with the outer turret here in the mid lane. Bottom lane's getting pushed in from Lovey Potato as well. No teleports are going to be here, but the inner turret is going to be the answer from Gamtee in this top side of the map.
They have a lot of DPS, and Let Me, they want to pick the Cassio.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Xiaohu with a beautiful fadeaway avoids the stun, and the flash comes through from Pasa. Huey coming over saying, oh, you guys call for something? But no, not going to be needed, as Pasa did disengage from that one. Inner turret going to fall down. Super Mega Death Rocket from downtown! And Tail locks down the kill, and a Voidless. There's the Glitter Lance. That was stunning from Tail. Just knew exactly where the back was going to come through. That's a second kill for the Jinx.
And Xiaohu really putting the best foot forward on this mid Lulu. I even said I prefer him on carries, but clearly they've been practicing this strategy so much better executed today than it was back in the LPL. And when you're this far ahead on Lulu, the scary thing, we talk about her damage falling off. You can get a Snowball Lich Bane at this point. You are doing massive damage during these fights, especially as there's no magic resist being itemized for just yet.
Yeah, did you see that red buff get very, very confused? He was trying to crawl into a hole in the side of that den. Very, very strange. Tail so scary now on this Jinx that even red buff doesn't want to go anywhere near him. Kabe just trying to farm up. Is behind about 30 CS. Does have the Trinity Force though, so doing decent amounts of damage. The Aegis now completed by a Voidless, who's going to Void Rush his way towards this bottom side. And that's a little bit confusing. He's going to be Huey now picking up a Hex Drinker and an Aegis of the Legion as well. He has definitely identified that there is not a whole lot of physical damage that he needs to contend with at this stage of the game.
He goes for the selfish, Snowball choice of the Hex Drinker, complements that with the team choice of the Aegis. The best of both worlds, you'd have to say, to go with the Cinderhulk Jarvan build. So it gets a bit of the damage back from the Warrior enchant that he didn't pick up this game. before we saw all this action, the unique thing about these two comps is that even though they're both about peeling for the AD carry, Gamtee have the advantage because they have the strategic option of the let me split push that won them game 1. There's no answer for the let me split push on LD's side. So with even win conditions, with the gold lead and kind of this extra strategy of just having let me just have his way with the base, take multiple inhibitors like he could in game 1, the pressure's on LD. They're actually the team that needs to build up the gold lead because having a flexible amount of win conditions that have already proven in this series to be successful gives Gamtee just the bigger playbook. They're less predictable, and Legend Dragon, they're all now about pulling this game into late and trying to win what will be very complicated, very mechanically intensive late game fights.
And LD actually wondering about on top of a ward here. You would have expected them to actually sweep that brush, but not going to come through, and Gamtee finally going to have their vision removed.
And all of this is to buy time for Maokai, of all people, to split push. Certainly no Trundle in that regard, and just is able to push in a minion wave that won't be gobbled up, and he might actually die here. Sync Dream and plenty of reinforcements, including the Lulu, are on the way.
Yeah, there's actually the Soul Shackles as well after the Twisted Advance. He's going to be able to lock down the stun as he doesn't find the Dark Binding, but there's a puddle, and Xiaohu with a whole lot of damage. Tail's going to get gifted himself a kill. No, he's not. Sync Dream, of course, takes that one away.
That's fine. I mean, not a big deal in this particular regard. The Morgana already has the Mikhails as a defensive option. That extra gold might actually help towards the Zhonya's of some degree, make her a possible diver of the backline. You're holding on to that Monsoon if you're Janna to keep away Trundle, to keep away the Jarvan. Having to keep it away from the Morgana as well, that's not the ideal thing for a Janna.
Yeah, Passer, though, is going to get the Petrifying Gaze off. Super Mega Death Rocket to steal away that kill, netting another one over to Tail. He was upset about not picking up that kill earlier as a Voidless. Being exactly as his name stated here, he's going to Void Rush towards that mid lane to try and protect that one as Kog'Maw going to take down the outer turret in the top lane. Bottom lane inner, though, and Gamtee, they're back to their rotational selves, taking away these turrets when they're gifted them.
Exactly, and Gamtee are punishing every trade with 2 of their own. Take out an inner turret, take out 2 inner turrets in this particular trade. The gold lead just gets bigger and bigger. It's almost 10,000 gold at 23 minutes with similar comps and more flexibility, as we mentioned. LD need a miracle.
Yeah, and do you know what's mental as well is Gamtee, that kill just before was the first one that Xiaohu hadn't had an input in. And we were talking about the fact that Xiaohu had a horror performance last game on the Kassadin. Gamtee, you have to think a lot of how they play revolves around this mid laner.
Whenever a Lulu wins lane, that's the reality. If she's able to have kill pressure herself, she's got the whimsy. She's so good at roaming around the map. She has the wild growth shield. She gets kill involvement in basically every kill that comes through, balancing offense with defense in terms of her AP scaling. And that's it's just like when Twisted Fate gets kill pressure on his enemy. You know that everyone else will pay for that reality. Xiaohu's making the same case for Lulu.
Yeah, he certainly is. Frozen Heart, though, is completed by Let Me, 30% CDR, and the Ravenous Hydra. So much turret damage to come through with this chomp as Kabe going to trick that Raptor into running around a little bit as he takes that one down. Tail going to continue the farm fest. He hasn't been back to buy in a little while. We'll see whether he goes for the Bloodthirster or whether it is going to be the Last Whisper. Looks like he's looking for a little bit more cash, so not happy with the BF Sword. Probably wants to be able to shred through some of the armor coming through on the side of Love 8 Potato. Yeah,
about 300 gold away from the Last Whispers. That's a very possible pick. I could just go for the BF Sword if that fits the item path better. Just looking down the lineup, there isn't a big armor stack just yet, but a lot of players do like to future-proof themselves a bit. If they don't feel like they're being punished enough, they don't need the lifesteal in particular, the Last Whisper is a fine purchase.
Yeah, Voidless actually going to get spotted out here, but there are a lot of members of LD around as the Black Shield is going to stop Huey from getting knocked up. In fact, just avoids the Howling Gale. No worries there at all. Sync Dream going to get slowed down by a sapling, but LD, they're just not looking like they want to pick a fight, and it'd make sense. 9,000 gold behind. Looking dangerous. 3 dragons to 1 as well as it's just Gamtee. It's like they're playing the same game here, like the same win conditions, but Gamtee are just doing it so much better.
And Gamtee, they have this realization that Cassiopeia, if she tries to pick up any farm in the mid lane, is an easy gank target for Jarvan in particular. The Cataclysm, every time her flash is down, on a much shorter cooldown than flash, of course, means wraparound ganks onto the Cassiopeia. And the only way Legend Dragon can kind of respect that and actually navigate around it is to group up as 5. But that just opens up the other win condition of Trundle split pushing away happily. They just have no good options, and all they're doing at this point is watching their jungle being cleared. Baron control just becomes a stranglehold for the Gamtee side. They're going to eventually rotate and pick up that objective as well. That extra win condition now is coming out chumps because all Legend Dragon can do is group up the Kog'Maw and the Cassio, ensure that they have massive damage, whichever target you look to pick. But that means free time for Trundle.
Yep, and they trade Cataclysm for Flash there as well. Avoidless having to get out of that one. Southwind going to get zapped down. Look at the Super Mega Death Rocket coming through. That Mikhail's was entirely necessary to save Southwind's life. And goodness gracious, that was almost a pick from a whole lot of setup CC that came through. Unable to quite close the distance. Is Gamtee going to use that as an opportunity to go for this Baron? They get spotted out. Avoidless, of course. Tremorsense going to help him knowing exactly what's going on regardless. Is just hanging out here. We'll see whether anything is going to happen as LD looking to group up. Trundle in the bottom side. Of course, Maokai there as well. In fact, the teleport unable to be used as Let Me, I think, managed to knock him out of it with a pillar.
Yeah, the pillar, I believe, does have that small interrupt. So it was enough to cancel the teleport. They're going to keep onto this Baron at Gamtee. A lot of Baron damage. Huey very, very tanky. Not a lot of good options for LD. If they all in this jungle, they're going to face a really strong Gamtee line, and they have their teleport of their own.
Yeah, Let Me actually coming towards this Baron here as well. It's going to get chomped down very, very quickly. Lovey Potato making his way over, but he's not going to be there in time. Avoidless goes for the 50-50, but no, Yui locks it down this time, and Avoidless going to die as Tail picks up that kill. It was good to go for it, but unable to quite get there. Just smote a little bit too early.
A 2-level advantage for Jarvan just means that you're speculative at best if you're the Rek'Sai. Rek'Sai being behind a Jarvan is awkward in itself, just given how Rek'Sai as a kit, she has the ability to balance farming with ganking. She has all the different tools to get ahead in the mid game. It just didn't happen. It's one game to the next.
Yeah.
Avoidless with a massive performance in game 2, but found wanting in game 3.
Yeah, and Huey just able to make more of his presence known around this map, and we've seen his Jarvan be fantastic before, and he's still able to use it to such great effect, much like we saw Insect do yesterday.
And Lulu's just so damn strong, Atlas.
So
you look at the gold
strong.
values. At this point, 3,000 gold ahead of the Cassiopeia, who really only has damage and one peel spell in her ultimate compared to, I mean, at this point, burst damage advantage and the utility advantage for Lulu. Only the sustained damage to a single target there for Cassia, and she eats a binding.
Yeah, binding going to come through. There's the Super Mega Death Rock as well, just for some extra damage. Petrifying Gaze came through, but didn't find anything as Baron up creeps now knocking on the front door of LD. That's the binding to land on a Lovey Potato, but Chompers as well, not going to do too much. Howling Gale going to knock up multiple members yet again, annoying this Gamtee lineup as Kabe from the top side just trying to get some farm and stop any potential split push from being rotated into. And Gamtee, now they're just going to protect their siege minion.
Actually, there's no damage taken down. Oh, able to do that with a fully charged Howling Gale. And I believe a Prey Seeker sniping it away. It's just going to return those. Plenty of Baron buff. Still 50% on this Baron buff for Gamtee.
Yeah, Let Me actually whimsied up here as well as Avoidless trying to come in for something. And the Chompers are down. Lovey Potato taking a whole lot of damage there in the front line, but tanking up a lot there as well. Flashes out of the way. The members of LD very, very low, but Gamtee keeping themselves healthy. And this inhibitor turret, it's going to fall down. No one dies, but the pressure is on as Huey looks to go aggressive. Kabe completely out of mana, and that inhibitor goes down without any deaths, which is quite interesting.
The minion waves pushing out for LD will just be gobbled up by Gamtee when they rotate around. Pings onto Dragon. That'll be the 4th Dragon. Don't think they need another win condition, but they're going to establish one right here.
Yeah, they certainly are. And 12,500 gold has been picked up for Gamtee as far as the lead is concerned. 7 turrets to 3. Looking a lot more similar to the first game than the second game here, and LD must be getting worried. But, of course, it is a best of 5, ladies and gentlemen. Gamtee need to win another 2 more. LD will have some more opportunities to fight back, even if they don't take this game. But we'll see whether they can make something happen moving forward. It's just going to be so hard, of course. When Tails on Jinx, the snowball queen herself, and Zhao, who is just this strong and playing this well, it's going to be very difficult.
With balanced team comps and an extra win condition, I can't see Gamtee losing this game. Even if they have a bad skirmish, just send Let Me to go get 2 inhibitors like he managed in game 1. He's already shown a prowess for the backdoor in that particular game. They're just getting minions wherever they can. They're trying to hit bigger and bigger item timings, but when you're 12,000 gold behind, you're just never going to be able to outtrade this Jinx, who's going to move towards 4 items. Going to be actually the Blade of the Ruined King. Just kill Maokai in particular that much faster at the start of the fight. Get that Get Excited proc and just kill everyone else.
Yeah, Blade of the Ruined King Jinx, that is very interesting, of course. Whole lot of extra mobility if you do use it while you're excited, but having the ability to keep yourself up in these fights at the same time as having the Mikhails there onto Sync Dream, it's going to be hard to kill this Jinx and take her out of the fight.
And look, both Rek'Sai and Maokai are going to get in melee range. Very tanky, but not a lot of consistent damage. It's all about the first kill for Jinx. That's kind of the reality of late game Jinx. You get enough items, get the first kill, and the mobility from your passive is the big thing that lets you smash down the backline. Of course, the 750 ranged AoE splash damage on crits helps, but mobility and range is the kind of the big thing that comes through. It's why Jugglemore is so popular. Throwing the Whimsy on a Cogmore, suddenly you have mobility and massive range and damage coming through from the Cogmore. Jinx gets that herself. She's the selfish version of Cogmore. Can really get it going and just needs her team to open up that first kill. Looking more and more likely the more damage items she gets.
Yeah, they're looking for it here as Gamtee now stacking up towards this top side. They have the minion wave. No Baron buff, though, as Letme's going to continue the split push, almost with the teleport available. That is up here for Love Eat Potato, but he has nowhere to teleport to. It's because they are relegated to just protecting their base. Miasma there from Parsa, able to come through with a fair bit of wave clear here, especially coming out of this Cassiopeia. So that is something to put down for LD, but otherwise Gamtee wave clear in spades with the rockets, the glitter lance, and Carbe walked through that, which is interesting. But he is going to be okay.
An interesting interaction between those abilities sometime. They're just happy to keep this push going. The split's going. A minute 50 to Baron. LD haven't been in the range of the Baron for a good few minutes at this point. Have some wards down, but those will time out very, very soon. Trundle's just waiting for someone other than Cogmore to be protecting this turret, and he'll be able to shrug off the damage and just solo it down himself and just, again, return to the form of Game 1. The Trundle undoes a lot of what Legend Dragon are looking to do, and their base is broken, so it's just not looking good for Legend Dragon. Gamtee pulling it out a little bit, definitely not looking for the fast finish, but the Blade's now finished on Jinx. That damage just got higher.
Yeah, it did, which is just ridiculous. We'll see whether he goes for a defensive item or whether more lifesteal is going to be the defensive choice that he's going to pick up instead. Of course, Bloodthirster could be taken, but Tail probably wants to be able to solidify a victory by staying alive in some of these fights because, man, right now, probably going to be A-okay. Oh, Dark Binding going to uncharacteristically miss there by Sync Dream. The Voidless came through, but all's quiet so far. They're just waiting for this Baron. 50 seconds until that one comes back up. This inhibitor actually going to be up again relatively soon as well. Dark Binding not going to find a Voidless, who's managing to actually avoid the Dark Binding, so that's a little bit frustrating.
And everything's just quiet. Gamtee could look to overforce. They could go for a turret dive. They have a tanky frontline, but there's no impetus to. The Baron's coming up in 25 seconds. The minion waves are in good spots. Trundle's split push and getting stronger and stronger towards 3-4 items, the defensive items to complement the Ravenous Hydra that he's already completed.
Yeah.
There's just no impetus to do anything overly aggressive. The only way they can lose is to really start throwing shutdowns and bonus gold onto the likes of Carbe and Parsa. And they spent a whole game navigating around those threats. The Cassio never got going, repeatedly ganked, punished for a lack of mobility in the mid. And Cogmore 0-2 and 2 just had no score involvements, no team fights to be won for LD, but we might see one here.
Yeah, there's the Flash Cataclysm as well. Parsa tries to use the ultimate, but doesn't know exactly which way to face as Lemmy's going to get exhausted there in the backline. Tail free hitting as well as the life bars of LD are getting destroyed. They're falling one after the other here as Xiaohu just able to do whatever he wants. Parsa goes down very late in the fight, but man, what a whitewash. The quadra kill for Tail. They're going to be able to push this one through for a victory. Gamtee pull the trigger and take down the game.
Absolutely. They finally get the pick they want. No coincidence that's Huey, whose jungle path in this game was wonderful and a sight to behold. Snowball Xiaohu. We always say that Snowball Xiaohu is the way forward. Even on Lulu, he makes it look good.
Oh, yeah.
7-0 and 11. 18 out of 19 kill participation. And Gamtee, they might have been dropping after that second game. They picked themselves up with a very impressive Game 3.
Yeah, and we saw what happens to this Trundle if you don't keep him down early. 2-0 and 11 as well, and he didn't get any farm at the beginning of that game. 70 CS up at the end. And it has a lot to do with the fact that mid lane went so well for Gamtee, but man, they looked a lot better that game, and now they have an opportunity to close this one out. Set point here for Gamtee.
It's the mirror matchup between Trundle and Maokai. Maokai's naturally going to build those resist. Trundle subjugates, wins the 1v1 in the off lane. Suddenly you can't do too much if you're Maokai. The split pusher we've already established well in the advantage of Trundle. just good play and good comping by Gamtee.
Yeah, really nicely done. But ladies and gentlemen, this is a best of 5. There is still potentially another 2 more games if LD manage to get back in this one. But Gamtee, we'll see whether they can follow through. We're going to have a short break, but we'll see you right afterwards.